Eating insects. David Gracer tried to save the world by eating bugs every day, but it turned out that he was the one who needed saving. He saw a world with a broken food system, one he believed was both fake and unsustainable. He began that one hero crusade to fix it, utilizing his teaching skills to champion insects as the logical and ethical future of food. Until the tension around him escalated, ending in a way he never saw coming.
Will last me about 2 weeks, maybe a week. Of the few species of cockroaches that I've had, these are tastier than the others, and they're very crunchy.
To fuel his mission, he had to build something that would horrify any normal family, a personal collection of 12,000 insects in the freezer, all dead. When faced with everyone's disgust over his ridiculous obsession, David came up with a brilliant defense. He began comparing land insects to water ones, like shrimp and lobster, calling the outrage a double standard. This argument successfully reframed his obsession as a principled stand, winning him a platform on TV shows and in classrooms. He was building clubs, gathering freaks who actually agreed with him. Yet that success vanished the moment he got home. David's mission to connect with the natural world through bugs was pushing his family away. His daughter was repulsed and his wife was at her breaking point, threatening divorce if he didn't quit his weird hobby. His solution was to try bringing them into his world, packing his bugs, and taking them to a fancy restaurant to share the experience. But this public performance backfired. As he unpacked his insects at the table, he became a spectacle because the restaurant thought he was trying to sabotage them.
It's like an undiscovered country for me.
We came out for a quiet dinner and saw this very sharing individual here eating some bugs.
And no pressure.
Horrifying his family and cementing his role as the family outsider. After years of eating common bugs, the thrill had faded. David needed a new, more powerful experience to satisfy his life duties, so he sought out the most dangerous prey he could find, the Vietnamese centipede, a venomous predator capable of killing a human. He had to freeze the living monster for hours to neutralize its deadly venom before he could safely devour it on camera. However, as he bit into it, what happened next was not at all what he expected. The centipede had one final defense. Within minutes of eating it, his body rebelled. His throat began to swell and his skin burned as a violent allergic reaction set in, sending him to the emergency room, barely surviving. Rat lover. Chantal Banks felt more loved sleeping beside 19 rats than she ever did next to her husband. What began as extreme adoration would turn into something she couldn't control. Chantal's search for unconditional love found an answer when she got her first pet rat at the age of 16.
I love rats more than I love people. I do. Hey, Janice, are you my crazy girl? I can't live without them.
This connection felt so pure until she began expanding her furry family, eventually collecting 19 rats she treated as children, living in the same house with her husband. This clashed with her marriage. The more she built her perfect rat family, the less room she had for her human husband, until he finally gave her an impossible choice. Unfortunately, he forgot she'd already practiced letting go of humans.
My husband didn't really want to take care of my rats anymore. It was very demoralizing and it was very difficult.
I didn't want any rats, and she can be quite demanding in getting what she wants.
I soon realized that I needed to get my own apartment and I needed to get my rats out here.
Chantal's decision was instant. She chose the rats and moved out. However, every victory demands a sacrifice, and hers would cost far more than she ever imagined. Her lovers now cost her $80 a week in food and over $10,000 in vet bills, financially anchoring her to a world of constant care and medical emergencies. She justified the cost as a moral duty, even stealing rat poison from stores to save feral rats. But what happens when your real son threatens your other children? Chantal's son grew up sharing his mom with an ever-expanding rat family. At first, he was totally creeped out, which led to an ultimatum to choose between him and the rats. Who wants to see their mom cuddling and kissing a rodent that smells like nachos? But as he got older, he saw how much joy they brought her. He began to understand and accept his mom's weird obsession. But not everyone was willing to overlook Chantal's fondness for rodents. The owners of the local hardware store watched a grown woman regularly sneak in to steal their rat poison, not to kill pests, but to save them.
I don't want to call anybody crazy, but the rats are gross.
Her mission to rescue every rat put her at odds with a world that saw them as vermin. That only deepened her isolation. She now saw the outside world as an enemy, a place that wanted to harm her children, making any return to a normal life impossible. Her husband tried to help her, but nothing seemed to work. And in the end, the rats gave her the pure, judgment-free love she craved, although this perfect furry family came with a built-in tragedy. A rat's lifespan is brutally short, with even the healthiest pet rarely living past 6 years. Chantal faced the inevitable, repeated heartbreak of losing the only family she had chosen, a cycle of grief that threatened the happy life she'd built with her pets. She has since disappeared from the public eye, choosing a private life with her ever-expanding rodent family over the judgment of the outside world. Adult baby. This guy invented a living style that would shock the world and defy every law of human evolution, where he's been living like a baby at the age of 31.
It's not sexual at all. It's a feeling of being safe, something I didn't have when I was growing up. And being an adult baby became my way of coping with the world and my own problems.
A traumatic childhood left Stanley desperate for care and safety, and without an escape, he risked being consumed by the anxiety and pain he'd carried since childhood. He discovered that by falling to a toddler state, wearing diapers, and having everyone's attention, he could access a feeling of safety. He found his sanctuary in the last place anyone would look, a custom-built 7-foot crib that made him feel young, enough and protected for the first time. But the safety of the crib created a new hunger. To feel truly secure, he needed to build an entire world outside of it. I made it sound like an epic movie line, but actually his grand, brilliant vision was just about eating dinner like a kid. Somehow, even mealtime managed to be a challenge. At 500 pounds, he didn't fit in any standard high chair, and custom ones cost thousands of dollars that he never had. Without it, his infant fantasy would always feel incomplete. He engineered his own high chair from scratch, a custom throne that finally allowed him to dine in authentic toddler style.
I really enjoy it. It makes you feel like a kid. High chair, I wanted to get one for a long time. The ones online are a couple $1,000s, and I couldn't afford that kind of thing, so I made something that was simple with few tools that I had.
But sitting alone in his perfect high chair, he realized the props were meaningless without the one thing he could never build, a mother's love. His crib, therefore, became the only anchor to comfort until it literally fell apart. The Velcro door on his 7-foot custom crib broke, and this tiny breakdown threatens his entire fragile ecosystem. However, fixing a crib is not a job a baby can do, as it requires adult tools and expertise. Stanley would have to regress back to his adult form to fix his crib, exposing the effort required to maintain his role as a helpless baby. This tragedy shattered the illusion. It forced him to face the terrifying truth that his entire constructed reality might never be complete, especially not without a mommy. He began a relentless online search, trying to connect with mommies who would play the role, feeding him and tucking him into his crib. But those scheduled playdates, followed by awkward payments, did not give him the feeling of unconditional love that he'd been craving. No matter how hard he tried, he could never build a real mother. This meant Stanley's adult baby lifestyle would never be complete. Eating dumpster. Kelly Athena believed the dumpster was a safer, more honest source of food than any restaurant or grocery store. She devoted years to proving that human beings can survive by eating trash every day.
There is this peach. If I peel it, that'll be pretty safe to eat. If I eat out at a restaurant, I don't know who's preparing that food back there. Good. If they have their gloves on, or if they have a cold, or if they have a cut on their hand. So I feel like it's, in a way, cleaner from a dumpster.
However, it wasn't easy to find farm-fresh food in the dumpster. Without a flawless system, her entire philosophy would collapse, exposing her to a lot more dirty food than was good for her. She engineered a military-grade operation, mastering dumpster schedules and using a grabber to execute precise swan dives for food.
I lean in gracefully like a swan dive, like a dumpster diva. Fresh sandwich. Today's date. I try to determine patterns and schedules in the stores so I know when to go by to get the most stuff.
However, this overlapped with another bigger problem, challenging her beliefs. Kelly had been consumed with the exhausting chore of obtaining food so that it overshadowed her enjoyment of it. Desperate to defend her choices, she tried every ridiculous idea she could think of. Validation no longer came from food, so she turned to test on humans. Kelly decided to host a dinner party for her friends using food she had gathered from the dumpster. This was the ultimate test of her philosophy. If her friends accepted the meal, it would validate her entire lifestyle and prove the food was truly good enough for anyone. The dinner was a success. Her friends enjoyed the meal, laughing and connecting, giving Kelly a fleeting taste of acceptance. Until the moment she revealed the food's origin, and the shared joy shattered. Her friends felt betrayed by Kelly, tricking them into eating food they considered dirty and dangerous. Those friends slowly drifted away, leaving her with more free time than ever. And in the end, she won her battle against waste, but lost everyone who loved her, leaving her completely alone. Love dolls. I'd personally crown Lizzie Gibbons the world's most tolerant wife, since not every woman could share her husband with over 200 love dolls. Bob and Lizzie Gibbons had trouble in their marriage, but they still liked each other and didn't want to give up yet. With nothing to lose, Bob confessed his dark secret of loving adult dolls to Lizzie. To his surprise, Lizzie was into it as well. But one doll wasn't enough. Their shared thrill turned desperate, pushing them to stretch every dollar. A single high-end doll could cost over $10,000, threatening their financial stability. They risked losing their home and savings to fund the obsession. Bob used his welding skills to build custom stands and cheap storage, thereby mastering the collection's logistics. However, this practical success only worsened their obsession. The dolls were no longer a hobby, but a full-time demanding institution. It takes about an hour to clean each doll thoroughly, and with over 200 dolls, the maintenance is relentless.
They're used pretty regularly. They really need a bath every time you use them.
Want the towel?
Yeah, I'll have the towel. Just pat her dry now a bit.
Yeah, she needed that.
Up on the chair.
Lizzie could either dedicate her life to this bizarre upkeep or watch the shared obsession that saved their marriage deteriorate. She embraced the ritual, transforming the chore into an act of devotion, a way to prove her commitment to the unusual world she and Bob had built together. But the more care the dolls received, the more human they seemed, leaving less room for the real humans in their lives. Even with a 3-bedroom, finding space to store the dolls became very challenging. Bob and Lizzie kept them everywhere, including the kitchen.
Bob and Lizzie keep them everywhere. In the living room, kitchen, and a dozen in the spare bedroom.
And it still wasn't enough. So they came up with an affordable way, keeping them in coffins and stacking the coffins on top of each other. They created a non-sexual philosophy, framing the dolls as art and taking them on public photo shoots. They wanted their family and friends to accept them, but everyone thought they were perverse. Their isolation worsened as their collection grew, hitting 240 dolls and consuming their entire lives. The world saw them as freaks, but they could never quit. In a final ironic twist, the very obsession that had isolated them from everyone else became the unbreakable glue that held their marriage together forever.